Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 31st, the last day of 2025. We're ready for a new year, but it's not here yet. So relax. We got a little while to go. As a matter of fact, I guess when the clock turns over tonight, not only will it be a new year, but it will be exactly a month, depending on how you measure it, I guess. Exactly a month, 30 days, 30 24-hour periods until we're back in government shutdown. You know, I mean, unless Congress returns, starts their second session, deals with everything that it's supposed to be dealing with, and remembers to fund the government prior to the January 30th midnight deadline for the expiration of the current continuing resolution. And every time they pass one of these continuing resolutions and kick the can down the road, they forget how quickly this thing is going to come back up. And, well, you know, the answer is right in the legislation. They should be tracking it by day as we do. But once again, lots of government functions being dropped along the way. And you never know. So, all right, we got a little bit of, hey, I'm leaking through speakers on your end there, Greg. So we'll just welcome you in. And today I took your advice and went and got a new fanfare, though the fanfare is really for me more than you, but that ought to help me. The lozenge treatment is working pretty well. Got tea, I've got lozenges, I'm using all the tricks I've got to help shorten the cold. Greg, we might as well get started because there's not that much time left in this year.
Yeah, not enough time for a fanfare.
Right. So we just, every once in a while, will use an alpenhorn and let people know that they can get Ricola cough drops. Ricola for that, I don't know, I need an ad for them. By the way, that ad always did drive me crazy because the voiceover announcer says it the American way, I guess. Ricola, I guess, or Ricola is I think how she pronounces it. And it's right next to I guess, I don't know, does that count as yodeling to say Ricola? And maybe the Swiss say it that way. Maybe they don't really blow alpenhorns.
Well, it depends whether there's a cough drop in your mouth.
I guess so, right. But I always found that interesting. Ricola, and they say it 3 times. Ricola, Ricola, and then they say
PBS
Ricola cough drops.
A really interesting homage
this is
to
really
Dick Van Dyke.
Oh.
Last night.
He loves Ricola.
When the Dick Van Dyke Show, which I still remember as a kid, loved that show, was on, it was the pattern on television. In this case, Procter & Gamble was the sponsor, to work advertising into the show script. Yeah. Not subtly.
They thought that was new when they started.
A can of Coke on the desk or something like that.
I see.
But Mary Tyler Moore would be in the kitchen using Joy, and she'd hold up and say, "This isn't a bubble bath, it's Joy. I'm using it to wash the dishes." You know, so it was like right into the show. That's just the way they did things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we do commercials differently these days.
Yeah, when they reintroduced product placement again in the, I don't know, I guess late 90s, and they continue to do it. They did it more subtly, but I think they thought they were inventing something. And they just didn't know that they used to do that all the time as part of the script.
In fact, it was much less subtle than it is right now.
That's interesting that it went the other direction. You would think it would progress into people just breaking into song and dance about their favorite soft drink in the middle of an action film. But
right, here I am, Laura Petrie, doing the dishes with Joy while I wash with my Maytag washer. That sort of thing. So interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. There's some other things.
I just wanted to warn the listeners, if we have any, both of them, pre-holiday, that I have 2 dogs in the house. Yeah. And the little one is my son, so the granddog is here. And she has a habit of trying to interrupt me whenever I'm at the desk, begging for treats. So you may hear a little whining in the background. Just go ahead and ignore it. I'm not abusing the dog. She just can't get her
Can't
treat
get enough
for another
treats.
hour, that's all.
Oh, well, you could give her the treat if it quiets her down.
No, because then the big dog will fight her over it, and that's even worse.
Oh, well, it's content.
It's content, yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Mash that like button. And don't forget to subscribe for the new channel,
Right,
Two Dogs
we review
Fighting.
it. Wow, the way the other one nips it. I've never, you're right. Gen Xer sees dog nip other dog for first time. Wow.
Yeah. I think I'll comment on that. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well,
One's a big dog, one's a little dog. This is really interesting.
crazy.
Let's see how it's going to go. Oh, my goodness.
Well,
that little dog is yappy.
It seems to be the most, I don't know, or YouTube would have me believe it's the most popular content on the channel. I think that's what they give old people, is that what they serve,
Probably.
these
No,
things.
old people, they give bird watching.
Oh.
That's what we do.
Oh, okay.
I put
Well,
all
that is
my,
true.
Cardinal in the snow pictures on
I haven't
Twitter.
done that as YouTuber yet, but I have run into the great
Oh my gosh, I've never
embarrassment
seen
of
this
my
before.
kids.
It's a red bird. Subscribe
Yeah,
to the
woo.
channel for more like that.
I like that one. Look, his hair is sticking up. Yeah. Well, one day I'll tell the bird watching story, but to the great embarrassment of our kids and the kids of other people we meet and talk to them about it. That seems to be
it's
a
a known
hot
fact. This
thing.
is science. I
Yeah,
mean,
you get
just
old,
the
you
older you
start
get, the
watching
more
it.
you're interested in birds. That's just what happens.
I don't know how that is. Right? We're turning into cats, is what it is.
Yeah, I suppose.
All right.
So today's pundit roundup is called "The Worst Cabinet
Trump Loves
Secretary is the
Birds.
one that kills the most civilians." I just thought that was an important point to make. But I want to start with some politics before I get to that.
It's a show about that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So it's Wednesday. You know what
Right.
that means.
Oh, yeah. Even now, at the end of the year, that'll be a hard time to remember to vote.
I know, but the last election of the year was in Iowa for a Senate district, a special election. I think the
How do they like going last in Iowa?
The previous person who inhabited that seat, I think, passed away. I have to check. I can't remember. There's just so many local elections. And I'm not from Iowa, so I don't know. But I thought that's what happened. Anyway, this is
get to
Harris
play
plus
baseball
17
forever.
district.
Yeah.
And the Democrat, Renee Hardman, won 72-27.
Wow.
72-28. So Democrats will overperform Harris by nearly 30 points. So what started as a strong Democratic year finishes as a strong Democratic year.
I guess so.
Iowa Senate Minority Leader Janice for Iowa says, "This one's for you, my dear friend Claire." Democratic Senator Claire Celsi passed away in October, so that I did remember correctly.
Okay.
Renee Hardman will make history as the first black woman to serve in the Iowa Senate. And will
Really?
continue to serve as CEO of Lutheran Services in Iowa as her day job. I knew that was going to happen. That's my little dog.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't hear anything, so that's good news.
Yeah,
I mean,
we just have to ignore
actually,
her,
we'd rather hear
otherwise-
her, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations to Iowa. And what year is it? 2025, barely. The first black
it's the last
woman.
election of the year, and Iowa comes through for Democrats.
Yes, and I was wondering how they are dealing with being the last election of the year. I know they used to like to be the first election of the year, but that time has come and gone. However, they are making progress on the diversity front. 2025, congratulations on the first black woman elected to your state Senate.
Yeah.
I also understand, though, that I guess because the incumbent was a Democrat, there was some concern. Had the Republicans won that seat, I don't know how likely that was, but it would have given them a supermajority in the body, and this prevented it from happening. So that's good news. But it hadn't happened before, but I guess it could have. But instead, the Democrats clobbered everybody and won 70-plus points in the... Wow, okay. Terrific.
So that's all good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all good.
Might have been nice to have a black woman in there before, but okay.
Right. Well,
Hey,
it
dogs.
is what it is.
All right. And, well, what else is up here? Oh, what's up? Is this a New Year's thing for the dogs? You having a dog party? Is that what it is? Is that why they're all over?
So.
Okay.
They're all over. They don't like it when I just sit here and don't play with them. So
I can understand
the other
that.
thing that I want to talk about in terms of politics, this is political polls posting late yesterday.
Yes.
Generic ballot, age 18 to 29. This is a congressional generic ballot. Sometimes the wonks call it a CGB. I just call it the generic ballot.
That's funny.
So everybody will know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. Cute.
And this is age 18 to 29 from YouGov. Just posted. Democrats 43, Republicans 21. So if you're worried about why do Democrats have trouble reaching young white males, well, not this year.
No.
That's old news.
Oh, well.
Just so you know.
I like old news as well.
Right, more politics. Just like many of us, Punchbowl News is taking some of these days off.
Good
but
idea.
Before they left for the holiday week between Christmas and New Year's, they left this edition. Schumer looks to turn page after his toughest year.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Not a
that's the
Senate
problem.
page.
Schumer accused President Donald Trump of retaliating against Colorado over Democratic Governor Jared Polis's refusal to transfer 2020 election denier serving a prison sentence.
Tina Peters.
Tina Peters?
Yeah.
For state crimes in a federal prison in order to facilitate presidential pardon. What the president did is disgusting, and our Republican colleagues ought to get him to change. Schumer told us he offered a fake pardon for her.
Yes.
Which has no force because it's a state issue.
Yes, although I like to tell him it's a different reason and see if he believes it.
Right. And so he started to cancel things like weather centers, National Center for Atmospheric Research in Colorado.
Right.
And the new impasse seemed to stump Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who now has to deal with a dispute between Trump and Democrats after spending weeks trying to clear objections within his own conference. I'm sure there'll be some conversations about this. I don't have a good answer to that right now. At least he didn't say, well, I didn't see it.
That's nearly the same thing. I have seen
it's
it.
Not quite
I just
the same
don't have
thing.
any
I've
answer.
seen it and I'm ignoring it. It's a lot better than I didn't see it.
They should go with that. I agree.
I'm pretending that I would care if I did, but no, I saw it and I don't care. That's a much better answer.
Yeah, you know what? All right. That seems it's annoying when they pretend they haven't heard. When you know that that's all everybody's talking about.
Progressives raged after Schumer backed a GOP-authored funding bill in March to avert a shutdown. For the first time, there were calls for Schumer to be replaced. His job status became a litmus test in Democratic primaries. Young progressives in particular said Schumer wasn't meeting the moment. Well, he's not. So I understand even old progressives say that. Even old conservative people say that. In typical Schumer passion, he was reflective yet defiant. I love that. See, if you like the guy, he's defiant. If you don't like the guy, he's an arrogant SOB.
Yeah.
And is not listening to his constituents. It goes with the territory, Schumer said. When you're going to be leader, you have to make tough decisions which you think are good for the country, good for your caucus, and good for the party, and I should add, and good for fundraising, because that's my main job. And you're going to get criticism.
Yeah.
Schumer got a ton of heat, including from colleagues over his refusal to endorse Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. You notice how that Zohran Mamdani just rolls off the tongue now that I'm used to saying it 1,000 times. Well, Schumer declined.
It goes that way.
To address his Mamdani decision. Schumer's approval rating among New Yorkers is 32%. He isn't in any real danger of losing his job. One Democratic senator called him damaged goods. Damaged, but he's still good.
Oh, all right. Sure.
I like that. That reminds me of my favorite saying about somebody who you don't like died. You know?
Yeah. We just
you should only say good about things, about people who died.
Right.
He died.
Good.
We asked Schumer if he's confident he won't have a challenger. Schumer responded, he's always working hard.
All right.
He said every year is tough in different ways. In 2022, it was tough getting things done, sitting in a room with Joe Manchin. Like, deflecting that's going to help you now? I don't think so. But it does highlight something. The issue Schumer chose for the shutdown, healthcare, was politically salient to Democrats' midterm fortunes. And then, the way Punchbowl puts it, yet the 43-day shutdown didn't result in an extension of expiring Obamacare premium credits. It wasn't supposed to, you moron.
Oh,
That's not what it was for. It was to highlight it, not to win. You can't win when they have more votes than you do. The minority didn't force the majority to do its will. How feckless of them. I hate that framing. It's wrong.
Though I like the word feckless.
Yes, well, lack of feck. There was no feck in what they did.
None given.
In terms of reporting on it. You know, you're not supposed to win. You can't win. It'd be nice if you won. But that would require Republican votes, and that wasn't going to happen.
Yes.
except in the House.
Yeah.
Discharge petitions,
Possibly.
But that's so rare, you can't expect that. So what Schumer did is focus on the issue, and then, of course, he folded. He has to fold. And no, it wasn't artful, because he's not good at artfully folding. Very few people are.
Okay.
Schumer wouldn't say whether he thought the shutdown was worth it. Of course it was. But it laid the foundation for a healthcare fight that exposed Republicans' political vulnerabilities, and that's going to come back in the coming year, which is like tomorrow. Because the coming year is tomorrow, but we have to wait for Congress to get back, because in January what's going to happen is the House is going to have to vote on, wait for it, Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition, not Brian Fitzpatrick's, right? Not Jared Golden's, but Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah. That was really rather remarkable, the way he managed that.
Yes. And so look how Jeffries managed it and Schumer didn't, because the Senate doesn't have the same process as the House.
Yes,
the Senate gets you to the point where you could say no and you have a lot of influence. In the House, the minority can't say no. They are the ones that have to seduce the majority to vote with them.
Yeah.
And the way that was done is that Mike Johnson is so bad at his job, it happened.
Yes. Right. And because there was a seduction, he has to tell his son.
Yeah. Well, his son's probably watching, filming the whole thing. So what happened, and then he puts it on YouTube and then says, like this channel.
Yeah. And I think they do.
So, they're different animals and you can't compare them. But the way Schumer does it is bad. He's just not skilled at this. He's skilled with procedure. He's skilled with fundraising, because, he knows Wall Street and New York money. And he gets that money for his other senators, and he's good at picking moderates over progressives if he thinks that the moderate is the better fit for the district or the state. In the case of senators, that's fine. It's annoying but understandable. That's not what people are mad at. What people are mad at is Schumer says, "Oh, I'm on camera. I better tell the camera I will never give in. I will never, ever, ever give in." And then tomorrow, well, I gave in. But of course I had to. Everybody knew I had to. And that's just awful. People get really mad when you do that.
I guess so. Maybe that's what he thinks is Democratic propaganda type.
Well, he thinks that's what the process is. We won the shutdown because we held them up for a few days and got the issue out there. Well, that's true, but you better have a better message than the one that you gave, which is, we'll never give up. Oh, yes, we did.
Yep. Well, we'll have to work on that one.
So what he said now is, we didn't want to shut down. I thought they'd sit down and negotiate with us, but they're intransigents on the issue of healthcare. They know they're drowning in it with the public. Schumer said they're paralyzed. That's true. And so, again, I said this the other day, when the discharge petition that Hakeem Jeffries offered was the one that Republicans signed on to in the House in frustration with Mike Johnson not allowing them to even have a vote or an amendment on their constituents getting screwed by what's happening with healthcare.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, Schumer wound up looking bad, but getting what was necessary. Hakeem Jeffries looked good and got what was necessary. And the difference between the two styles, not that Hakeem Jeffries is a rock star now, but, in comparison to Schumer he is, Schumer just doesn't have that kind of support. And nobody will ever give Schumer credit for something that he actually managed reasonably decently. He gets a B minus.
Okay.
Not an A plus.
Hakeem
Jeffries with his discharge petition and getting Republicans to sign it, you got to give him an A plus. He did the extra work.
That's really, you don't expect that. That was very unlikely.
Anyway, so that's the politics of the situation. So I thought that was worth going over.
Good. I think so too. So it was too late.
Well, yeah, it's too late. The choice.
Okay. But you get an A plus.
Don't listen to the show. I didn't like today's analysis.
Right. It's no good.
You have to say that at the beginning of the podcast when you put it out there, right?
I feel like I begin that way every day. All right. So, well managed. Good job.
Another political thing.
Okay. That was
Donald Trump illegally puts his name on the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, or whatever the official title is there, because Congress mandated it, and Trump doesn't have the right to do that.
Yeah.
And so the national media who are owned by corporate fat cats who want favors from Trump insist that their national broadcasts at night mention the Trump Kennedy Center, but it's not the Trump Kennedy Center.
Yeah, he wants it to be. They put the label on it, or they put the sign on it.
I say it's the Bronx Zoo and the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel and the Trump-era Bridge, and I don't really care if you try to rename all those things, which you tried. It won't work.
Yeah, it's the National Airport Performing Arts Center, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So Tim Miller says, noting that there's complaints that artists are starting to cancel their performances at the Kennedy Center because of what Trump illegally did. And Tim Miller says, you have to live in the most rarefied bubble on earth to believe that an artist canceling a night at the theater in D.C. will have, quote, downstream effects on social trust, end quote, like some of the conservative influences are claiming. Like 15,000 people in the whole country, max, care about who's at the Kennedy Center.
There's a lot of that going around. A lot of things that real people either have never heard of or don't care about. That in their bubble, the conservative influencers are paid to try to make people care about it.
Right. If Trump wants to put his name on it as a big troll, Tim Miller says, he can have Trumpy artists there. It's his prerogative. But artists don't have to play along if they don't want it to. It's a free country.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. So this is from The Hill. It just mentions 7 Kennedy Center acts that canceled amid Trump's takeover.
Yeah.
Now, there's still shows there, but nobody's showing up for it. It's not like, it's empty. No, it's not empty. There's like the first 3 rows are filled.
Yeah. I mean, right. It's empty.
So, Doug Verone and dancers, Christy Lee, the Cookers, Chuck Red, Rhiannon Giddens, Issa Rae, Hamilton. I mean,
these are all the cancelers.
Those that have quit so far.
All right.
And, I think it's a big deal. And look, resistance takes many, many different forms.
Yes.
And I think it's all good.
I think it's fair enough. I mean, they don't want to be associated with it. The name change is stupid and petulant. But on the other hand, look, these people they're the performers. If they just decide not to do it, there's not that much you can do. I know there's contracts and all. They could work those things out.
Contracts and all, but, they say to themselves, they say to the public, look, I can't fire RFK Jr. for killing children with his vaccine shenanigans, which is the focus of my pundit roundup.
Yes.
Like I'd like to, but I can, not play at the Kennedy Center because Trump's a jerk.
Yeah. I did see so they're threatening litigation. Rick Grinnell, I guess, who's the chair, the nominal chair.
Litigation. Yeah. Let's do some discovery here.
Right. I'll sue you. Anyway, it does look a little stupid and weak, but they're ready to sue. And, I don't know how well it'll do as a defense. Depends on what the contract says, but it is interesting. I did see some people saying, hey, I had a contract to perform at the Kennedy Center. I don't know what this place is.
Exactly. What if it plays out, and we've seen this. Remember when Letitia James and James Comey were indicted by the federal government?
No, they weren't.
The defense was, I understand that my clients didn't do anything wrong, Your Honor, but we can't even get to that.
Yeah.
Because the people who indicted him don't serve in the positions they claim, and you got to rule on that first.
Right.
And the judge said, you got a point.
Hey, maybe. I mean, it depends on what the contract says, but it would be very interesting if the Kennedy Center contracts had in it, and I assume they used to have good lawyers, and the standard contracts probably said this contract is
the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, is what the official name is, and this is not the name of that place.
Maybe, although like if they had good lawyers, and I guess that they did, it would probably say, and its successors and assigns or whatever you would use to say, all right, if we change the name, but honestly, whoever, I don't know that the lawyers anticipated a name change for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.
That people like James Comey and Letitia James would be indicted or attempting to indict, because you couldn't do it with James, you kept failing, that they were going to bring up bogus charges. Yeah. That wasn't written into the regulate because nobody expected the Department of Justice to bring up bogus charges, but they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody expected a name change, but they did.
It will be interesting to see whether there's anything in there. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm sure the artists are resigned to possibly losing some money. The interesting thing will be if I mean, I think they filed suit or threatened to file suit, for $1 million, which wasn't what they were getting paid, these artists, by any stretch.
Right.
So, I mean, all right, you want to claim $1 million in damages? We're going to have a hell of a discovery. You're going to have to break out the tax records and the books and show me how you lost $1 million.
Rick Ellison putting all this money in his pocket. And by the way, who says that he's the director anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a good strategy that, as Chuck Todd likes to say about politics, it just might work.
There is another such story out there, and I realize we're coming up on the break, and I'll dig it up and I'll tell the story on my time if you like. But there's another litigant who also has been hit with a lawsuit from the Trump camp saying, looking for millions of dollars in damages, and I forget who it is, but they've got good lawyers. And they say, if you say you've been damaged personally, he says my Trump name, my brand, and I personally have been damaged by this, you're going to have to demonstrate damages. We'll have to see your taxes. Show me what your revenue drop has been so that we can figure out what the damages have been. And also, by the way, I'm not 100% sure that you're, mentally capable of managing this suit. You're going to have to show me the medical records as well. So it's an interesting thought. I'll dig it up. But yeah, it's a good way to get rid of some of the frivolous litigation anyway, or make good stories in the meantime.
Yeah. Remember, Trump's popularity is dropping like a stone. We'll finish this segment with this strength in numbers. Okay. What voters in every state think about Trump and prices, they hate it. Minus 16 national net approval for Trump is a landslide electoral defeat. Just remember that.
Damn. Have you seen the price of a pardon these days? It's going through the roof. It's crazy. So, well, anyway, I guess save your box tops, kids, in case you need a get out of jail free card. All right. I will search around during the break and see if I can find it. Somebody was a very smart litigant. I put it in here somewhere.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show in the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, everyone. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We've made it through segment 1. Got one to go here. Just to follow up with the news nugget that I dropped from way back when December 16th, the New Republic is, I found the article. They've got the report. Malcolm Ferguson gets the byline. The Pulitzer Board is the one being sued one of several 100,000 entities being sued at the moment by Donald Trump. But the Pulitzer Board, it says here in the headline, demands Trump's tax and psych records in lawsuit twist, as they say. It's a new dance sweeping the nation, the lawsuit twist. Donald Trump isn't going to be happy about this one, they say, and the word is that he's filed a defamation suit against the Pulitzer Prize Board. I don't know why. I'm sure it's in there. We could read the article later, but I just want to let you know who the litigant is. And they, I guess, they're the ones behind this strategy. This whole thing may backfire, as they say, as the Pulitzer Prize board is now demanding Trump's psychological records, prescription medication records, and tax returns in the discovery process. I don't know if they'll get all of them, but I guess the idea is...
It's a great ask, though. I love that.
Everyone should model their strategy after it. So apparently he filed suit in 2022 while he was out of office after the board refused to revoke 2018 Pulitzer Awards from the New York Times and the Washington Post for, quote, I guess from his lawsuit, perpetuating the absurdly false and defamatory narrative contrived by the president's political opponents that he and his campaign somehow colluded with Vladimir Putin and the Russian government to gain advantage in the 2016 U.S. presidential election and thereafter maintain some nefarious... So they're basically saying that he's suing the Pulitzer board for giving Pulitzer prizes to the Times and the Post for their coverage of the Russia hoax, which, not a leg to stand on, of course. And basically they're saying, I don't even understand why you're doing it, but if you say you've been damaged by our giving out the Pulitzer Prize to people that you don't like, you're going to have to show us how much money you lost and demonstrate it. And I don't know how they get to the medical records, but I'll read that later so I don't eat up more of your time. But a good strategy, and perhaps later on we'll... Oh, all right. Fine, by all means. Well, let's see. I'm not exactly where we stand. It says here... Okay, Trump and his spokespeople complain a lot, but the board stood its ground, clarifying that no passages or headlines, contentions or assertions in any of the winning submissions were discredited by facts that emerged subsequent to the conferral of the prizes. Nevertheless, the lawsuit dragged on deep into 2025, and the board is still fighting back, demanding tax returns. Why we understand that. But all right, so here's their pleadings. To the extent you seek damages for any physical ailment or mental or emotional injury arising from counts 1 through 4 of your complaint, he said, not only did I lose money, but I suffered mental anguish, which means you have to pay me even more money. All right, what treatment did you seek for your mental anguish? None? How anguishing could it have been, essentially?
Yeah, I want the documentation.
Yeah.
Right?
Show me that you're taking antidepressants. Show me that a psychologist has at some point said, you're right, he has suffered some mental duress here. That needs to be documented. You can't just... I'm sure in Trump's world, in Trump mind... I heard about a lawsuit. They sued McDonald's and they got $1 billion because of mental hardship, mental duress, they said.
Well, first of all, show me that
that's
you're
the thing.
Mentally deranged.
Well,
and
you
that
are.
You've deteriorated. I want those documents. And
yes,
then
please.
2, show me I caused it.
Right. That's the big difference. Well, I heard they did that, and that's baloney. I can't believe it. But if you hear the report on the radio,
no, it's true. They were injured, so you're lying.
Right. Right. You should be suing them for that.
Yeah, but what about the fact that I was responsible? Well,
in his world, he heard it on the radio. That's where the suit exists. There was no courtroom proceeding during which lawyers, including lawyers for the defense of the corporate entities being sued, hashed out and fought bitterly over, is this documentation of the injury sufficient to demonstrate, 1, that there was harm, and 2, that the defendant caused it? And the jury said, yeah, there is. He skips that whole part. So he thinks you just file the suit and then you totally win. But all right. Anyway, very smart lawyering by the Pulitzer folks. And I hope they get what they're looking for, although I assume that he'll just drop the suit rather than... Right. And then try to put them in prison.
It doesn't matter what level. This goes back to something you said years and years and years ago.
What was that? I don't know.
If the Senate claims that the House passed something, show me the paper and show me it got walked over. Show me everything, because you cannot. This goes back to the first Trump administration. You cannot assume in good faith anything about these bozos. Show me everything. Yes. Document everything.
Okay, I do feel like I said that. I did. I'm pretty sure. And it's a smart strategy. These guys don't do their homework. They don't do any paperwork at all. You really need to ask them to prove that. By the way,
that'll never work. Oh yeah. Well, what about Lindsay Halligan? And she's not really right. What about Aline Habba? She resigned.
You will be shocked where they fall down. And it's part of the reason it's so surprising is that this is routine paperwork that goes on unseen and therefore unmentioned in a competent administration. So you don't know about it.
Well, that's what you said, right?
You ignore it. Yeah.
But at the same time, what did I say? Well, how do you know that these artists aren't going to get dinged because the contract says that they... Well, you don't know that.
Right.
Let's see the contract. Let's see the language.
It's probably a good contract because it was written by the old ones. But
anything,
right. I mean, you got to show me. I mean, that's going to be happening in the trial.
We're all from Missouri these days.
Yeah, exactly. The show me state. Right. Well, this is happening all over the place. What was I?
Here's what's happening all over the place.
A
minus 60 national net approval is a landslide electoral defeat, says G. Elliott Morris. By now, we should all know Trump is very unpopular, but what does that mean at state level? After all, it's states that elect a president. The charts below show estimated Trump approval overall and for his handling of inflation for each state, combining all the interviews we conducted in 2025 in our polling from May through November. Trump's approval overall among adults is a pretty abysmal number. It's a positive in just 11 states, but it's downright catastrophic on inflation. Trump's only positive rating is in Oklahoma.
Well, they all read his Bibles in school.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really account for it. Oklahoma, why?
Why Oklahoma? I don't know. To really underscore just how bad this is, consider that these maps look less like the results of the 2024 president's election, a lot more about how Reagan won in 1984, when Martha Mondale lost by 18 points to Reagan nationally, and the only state he won was Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess that's a mirror image. One gets Minnesota, one gets Oklahoma.
But everybody knows Reagan was a landslide.
They do say that.
Well, you should understand that Trump approval rating right now is in landslide territory for the other side. I can think of two big points to make other than Trump is unpopular, says G. Elliott Morris. First, looking at the top chart, it's notable Trump's overall approval is not only weak in Democratic-leaning states, it's underwater across many Republican-leaning states. Much of the Midwest, the Sun Belt, some of the plains and southern states we typically think of as red. Trump's approval rating is not just underwater because of Democratic resistance. A lot of independents and Republicans disapprove of how he's running the country. And it's those independents, or those that call themselves independent, even if they're really not, where you really see Trump's unpopularity. There are some polls that just give him a 25% approval in that group.
Oh, well, that's the hardcore number that we always thought was the floor for even the craziest, even before
Richard
Trump.
Nixon, that resignation was 23, right? So, in fact, the decline from Trump's vote margin in 2024 is steeper, 26 in some polls, 23 in others. The decline from Trump's vote margin in 2024 is steeper in redder parts of the country. Here's a crude chart just to make my point clear. So he just has a chart that shows that. They approve of him in West Virginia and Wyoming. But even there, it's just below where you'd think it should be compared to his vote margin. Second, inflation is a uniquely toxic issue for Trump. Now, part of inflation is what healthcare costs, hence Chuck Schumer's strategy. People criticize them for not doing tariffs. Tariffs isn't going to do it. People don't look and say, oh, tariffs, I hate Trump. What they look at is say, oh, beef prices, I hate Trump. What they look at is, oh, healthcare, my healthcare quadrupled because of you. I hate Republicans. That's what Schumer chose. Smart.
Okay.
Or as they say in Boston, smart.
Right.
Second,
wicked smart.
Inflation is a uniquely toxic issue for Trump, even in states where his overall approval approaches parity. Ohio, Iowa, Florida, North Carolina. His handling of prices is deeply negative. The president's at minus 10 in Nebraska, minus 15 in Pennsylvania, minus 20 in Iowa. Iowa, where we just had that special election, where the Democrat overperformed in a state election by 30 points compared to Harris.
Right.
Minus 20 in Iowa. Yeah. Well, what difference does it make? Well, look at the election results.
It's usually the weather forecast in Iowa.
Whatever
Minus
residual
20.
goodwill Trump retains among right-leaning parts of the electorate in general does not extend to his handling of prices and inflation, the issue that won him the White House. Let me be very clear about these findings. In every state in the country, except for Oklahoma, more adults disapprove than approve of how Trump is handling prices and inflation. And being +1 in Oklahoma, a state he won by 34 points, is nothing to cheer about. Outside of Oklahoma, there's no place in the country where voters on net approve of his handling of prices, and that includes Wyoming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was
the White House is
they're not
freaking out about affordability. White Democrats are likely to keep running on the issue.
Yeah.
And from an electoral perspective, this matters because presidential approval is a proxy for all sorts of political outcomes. A president who is broadly unpopular in swing states is creating persistent headwinds for down-ballot candidates. They know it. That's why they signed the discharge petition that Hakeem Jeffries put out.
Yeah. And that's why people are retiring early.
Right. State-level approval numbers like these help explain why parties can struggle even in otherwise favorable political environments. And right now, Republican parties are struggling even in their favorable political environments within their state. The point is this. Beneath the familiar national top lines, it's him writing now, lies a remarkably negative state-level pattern. Most Americans in most states disapprove of their president. Be sure to check out all the new polls for the coming year because we're going to have really nerdy stuff. So that's a promise. I'm going to hold him to it.
Okay. All right. Good. We'll be watching for it. It's a big polling year. The midterms, I know, still like basically a year away, but that doesn't stop polling. Are you kidding? They're just going to poll and tell us.
But remember, there's a lot of garbage polls out there. A lot of garbage polls.
That's true.
You'll find them. All of a sudden, Trafalgar finds that Trump is +17 in popularity, while everybody else says he's -92. And is
There'll
that
be some
an
of that
exaggeration? Only slightly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's true. We'll be flooding the zone with garbage. Well, we won't be. We'll be trying to clear up the zone. Right. But that'll be the polling news in about, I guess in a day.
Right. But it's coming, and it's one of the many, many reasons to, look at places like strength in numbers for your aggregate polling number and not Real Clear Politics. Which
boo for them.
Cherry picks the good polls for Trump and decides that the bad polls for Trump, that pollster hasn't been around long enough, so we don't have to include him.
Well, yeah, they have made that real clear to us.
Yeah, very clear. So last topic before I go.
Oh dear.
For 2025.
Oh,
appropriate.
Right.
The last topic is a medical one. This is about health secretaries and the damage they do. In fact, that's the title of this New York Times article by Janine Interlandi. This is the damage Kennedy has done in less than a year. The agency's plan to go with a shorter list of recommended vaccinations came perilously close to being implemented, and then they decided to hold back for a bit.
The needles.
As
and the damage
CNN reported, the agency's plan was to go with a shorter list along the lines of what Denmark recommends. As Politico reported soon after, that plan was jettisoned at the last minute over legal and political concerns. Sources in and around the department have since suggested something worse may be still in the offing. They could still move to align with a country like Denmark, said Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis. Remember him? He's the infection...
Yes. The infection king,
infectious disease,
as they call
the
him. I don't
infection
know.
control doc, former director
The
of
good
the
one.
CDC and Prevention's Respiratory Disease Division. He resigned in August in protest, but they could also just scrap the list altogether so that there aren't any recommendations.
That's fair and balanced.
Right. As the article says, either of these changes would be unconscionable. Among other things, the CDC list, also known as the Childhood Vaccine Schedule, helps determine which vaccines are covered by insurance, which are included in the Vaccines for Children program, that supplies crucial shots to the and underinsured, and which are protected from certain liabilities that might otherwise drive vaccine makers from the U.S. market. Altering these recommendations or downgrading them to shared clinical decision-making, which is weasel language for we don't recommend them, it's up to you.
I see.
But we don't have to pay for them if we don't recommend them.
Is that
would
the Denmark
upend the
model?
protocols and could make it nearly impossible for millions of families to receive certain life-saving vaccines, even if they still want them. So if you're worried that your kid is going to die of whooping cough or diphtheria or tetanus, Things you don't see anymore. Whooping cough is back. Diphtheria isn't.
I feel like I have that. I have whooping cough.
Yeah.
You don't, but...
So you can't stop coughing. It's horrible. Watching infants, it's just terrible.
Yes, it's pretty gross.
And people die from it.
They do. They cough to death.
That's why the headline for the pundit rounded today was the worst cabinet secretary is the one that kills the most civilians. Right. And RFK Jr. is certainly leading the pack because he's trying to kill children.
And yet his department, as I understand it, has something to do with health, which is weird.
Yeah, make America healthy again, they claim. But it's all scam.
Dubious.
It's all to sell you garbage supplements and such. And it's horrible. And we saw it coming years ago, and here it is. It's here. In fact, there's a second article in that vein in the Washington Post, how RFK Jr. upended the public health system. Among his requests was to replace the entire membership in an influential independent committee of experts that makes recommendations for how and when to vaccinate Americans. Kennedy also asked the panel to reconsider a long-standing recommendation that all newborns get Hep B vaccine and revisit the use of multi-dose flu shot vials, which contains a mercury-based preservative called thimerosal, which is perfectly safe. But anti-vaccine says, it's a mercury derivative, you're killing our children, which is all garbage. And so, they just don't want you to get vaccinated. Flu shots are down 10%, and guess what? It's one of the worst flu seasons we've seen in 30 years.
Yes, I think it happens to coincide with there's a strain of the flu that either isn't in the mix or it's just not
But
working
you haven't
all that
proven
well.
that.
Right.
Well, that's because prevention is really hard to prove. It's unethical to do a controlled study.
Yeah, give people stuff that doesn't have.
The Maha influencers who want to sell you stuff are well aware of that and say, well, you haven't proven prevention. It's not really visible. So we can make noise and say things that sound good to a stupid person who thinks a smart person would say something like, well, you shouldn't have mercury in your vaccines. Well, you don't have to. They're actually available without mercury. It's just that those are individual shots and they cost more. If you want a multi-shot vial, usually with 10, and you're doing a clinic, it's much cheaper to buy the bottle of 10 than it is to the individual. But we'll get them if that's what you want. It's just going to cost you a little more.
And no one is worried about rising costs.
Right. But why do they make a multi-dose vial? Affordability.
Because they're giving out multi-doses. Yeah.
Affordability, that's why. It's
right.
the new watchword.
Right. Well, they're against that. It's a hoax.
Right. So Andrew Nixon, very appropriate name, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, said of the email about wanting to get rid of the board, ACIP.
Oh, yeah.
All this was a suggestion. This is a newly reconstituted committee, and the secretary is providing a North Star to make sure suggestions were communicated to the members.
Okay. In this administration.
It's all bullshit.
Suggestions.
I want to find out exactly what he said. And who I didn't have anything to do with it. It was the committee recommendation. Well, I want all of your emails to the committee that says that it was their recommendation and not the other way around.
We strongly suggest that you sink your boat in the Caribbean. We'll help you, but we strongly suggest you do it yourself.
So your comment and my comments cover both Pete Hegseth, a special case, I suppose, because it's military, and RFK Jr. For cabinet secretaries who are killing people. But then there's Marco Rubio, who got rid of USAID. He certainly gets an honorable mention, if not worse. This is a separate, different piece, though, just showing how bad these people are. Washington Post, the State Department font change.
Right, yes. Why did they do that? No one knows.
It's about respect, not aesthetics. I'm a blind diplomat. Sans serif type can help millions of people with poor vision and disabilities.
Okay.
When the State Department recently reversed a Biden administration policy change to use Calibri font instead of Times New Roman, and Calibri shows up on a computer screens in a much cleaner way than Times New Roman does. In diplomatic communications, Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the decision by his predecessor as wasteful diversity. In my personal capacity, I believe this reversal is wrong. I should know, because I proposed the idea. For more than 14 years, I have represented the U.S. on several continents as a Foreign Service officer. I'm also blind. In December 2022, I was a senior advisor to our Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. I was tasked with developing an easy but tangible win on accessibility. Having disability experience, I wrote the memo Secretary of State Anthony Blinken signed in January 2023 to move the department from Times New Roman to Calibri, a sans serif font. This was a small, cost-neutral shift to help employees and members of the public with disabilities more easily access departmental sites, information like travel alerts, passport applications. Maybe that's why.
That is interesting.
Make it more difficult to get passports.
Oh, well, that sucks. I mean, I was confused by the change that Rubio ordered just in terms of like, what difference does it make? And then I found out, well, it's some kind of dumb diversity thing that they were using the other font. But, naturally, as it turns out, no, there's a real story behind one of the changes. The change to Calibri has an explanation and science behind it, whereas the other changes, I don't know, it looks dumb. And it costs money to change back. And of course, right, like Rubio is saying, well, look at all the money they wasted changing to Calibri. Well, don't waste it turning back. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, my God. And I think their excuse was, I hate diversity, and Times New Roman looks more like official or something. To the American eye, perhaps, maybe. I don't know why. By the way, I thought they thought that the Times was fake news. I mean, that's the Times, I think, that they're talking about. It's their font. Times New Roman.
And by the way, let me just throw this in there because as I was reading this Washington Post story, this popped up also from the Washington Post, updated today at 5 a.m. U.S. vaccination rates are plunging. Look up where your school stands. Rocked by pandemic politics, the nation's shield against infectious disease is shrinking.
Oh. Yes. Well, that is happening, and measles roaring back now, of course, as you say, whooping cough as well. That's fun. Things
measles,
that we thought were gone.
Whooping cough, all sorts of bad stuff.
So, yeah. So those of us who have been vaccinated, but who are older, like, how do you check to see whether you're still sufficiently vaccinated? If it's been a long time, usually they just leave you alone because everyone's vaccinated. But now that kids aren't getting vaccinated, what do you do?
One example. The share of U.S. counties where 95% or more of kindergartners were vaccinated against measles, the numbers doctors say is needed to achieve overall protection, known as herd immunity. Remember, the shot isn't just about you, it's about your community, has dropped from 50% before the pandemic to 28%. Most of the counties that previously lacked herd immunity got worse.
Oh, dear. Yeah, naturally.
And so it's all bad. We don't promote medical decisions, said Jeremy Schmidt, superintendent of the Becker Public School District in Minnesota, part of a conservative county northwest of Minneapolis. Kindergarten vaccination rates have been 100%. Now they're 77%. So Minnesota is still a good government state.
I'm not going back to kindergarten. That's it. I changed my mind.
But it's bad. So you can search by county.
All right.
What county are you in again? Loudon, something like that?
Yeah, don't you know the most awfully reactionary, or now 115% Republican? Right. It isn't, of course.
Pre-pandemic, your vaccination report card says that, let's see, in Virginia, I don't want Ohio. Why is it giving me?
Is there a Loudon? I don't think so. It's pretty unique. Loudon. There might be some other spellings out there.
Right.
Loudon or Ludown.
Well, this map doesn't work very well.
Oh, well, why would it? Is it a government site? Nothing works. Oh, boy, I'm turning Republican. That's it. I quit.
Let's see. Oh, this is terrible. I'm trying to look at Loudon County, and it's not giving me. It keeps telling me what's going on in Ohio.
Well, it was 100%.
Right now.
Right. Well, ask Dr. Amy Action what is going on in Ohio. She could have told you at one point when she worked for the state. Now she doesn't. She's running for Congress?
Yeah.
Senate? Something? I forget already.
Amy Acton? Ohio?
Yeah. She's throwing her hat in the ring.
Isn't that a Vivek Ramaswamy thing?
You know what? I don't know. I just know she's running for office. I forget already what I'll look it up. Well, if you keep trying to find out how Loudon County is doing, I will find out what Amy Action is.
Yeah, Amy Acton is running for governor. She's running against
too late.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Well, good. What a showdown, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, governor. Well, that's probably a better bet, honestly. I'd be happier with her running the state than representing it in Congress. It's a waste of her time, honestly. She should be running the state instead. So good luck to her there. So medically speaking, as a public service, so if you're, is it a legitimate worry if you are, Gen X or older and saying, I don't know when my last measles vaccination was, but I don't want to get caught up in this thing. How do I know if I'm still immune? How do you do that?
It's
not
really
a real concern.
If you got it
okay.
As a kid, you're immune. If you got the vaccine as a kid, you're still immune.
Okay.
It's possible that there might be a little bit of, as you get older, not quite as effective as it used to be, but you're still good. That's not really the issue. It's people who've never been vaccinated.
Okay.
And the whole idea that measles is harmless is just wrong. Joe Rogan.
Oh my God. Yeah, I heard that.
But
right.
they mix up, measles wasn't even around when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. He's not old enough for that. He's thinking of chickenpox.
Yes. Right. And then you got it and you went away and then you're immune for life. And I guess, right. Do you get an immunity from measles if you have it and survive it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's right about that part, but he's definitely was thinking about
but the idea that, it wasn't a problem. I remember all my friends got it. No,
they didn't.
Because by the time you were old enough to remember anything, your friends weren't getting it because the vaccine was already there.
He confused the cartoon measles with real chicken pox and said, see, all the kids were getting it. And it is possible, by the way, that later generations came to think of measles as no big deal because it was something that kids in cartoons and sitcoms would fake to stay home from school by drawing on themselves with a red pen or something.
Why don't you ask Mitch McConnell about polio?
Yeah, you should. He may not be able to answer you anymore, but he'll let you know these diseases are serious and for real. Even if Joe Rogan isn't. Okay. Well,
right.
Thanks, Greg.
I'm old enough not to remember friends with polio, but I'm old enough to remember the older siblings of friends who wore braces because of polio.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess once you eliminate, we've found that out as a psychological side effect of this whole thing. Is you eliminate the problem, and then people after a while begin to say, well, what was the big deal? They don't understand it in the personal terms.
That's what's happened with the pandemic, in 2020. People were like, they were freezer trucks outside of morgues. People were dying so much. Well, I don't remember any of that. I just remember that my kids had to stay home and it inconvenienced me.
Yeah, I was really annoyed by that. All right. Thanks, Greg. Happy New Year. We'll see you next one. All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm trying mightily, to remember something somewhere along the way where I wanted to go on one of my other tangents about Trump and paperwork and proof of things. And Greg reminded me, I have a limited amount of time and there are some stories I want to get to before I leave. We switched directions. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. I might try and search around. Well, I don't know. We'll see if we can rhetorically get back over there. But I was reminded of another couple of stories that are circulating today, which are of some importance. Greg mentioned in passing that Trump is still at the game of trying to punish Colorado for not facilitating the release of election truther and convicted felon Tina Peters out in Colorado. If you don't hand her over to us although she's been convicted of a state crime, give us custody of the prisoner so we can move her to a federal prison and then try to effectuate a pardon based on being convicted somehow in a state court but sitting in a federal prison. I can order the Bureau of Prisons to release you even if I can't actually pardon you. Or maybe I can try to do both. I don't know. You can try anything, but not all of it is going to be effective. I just remembered what the other thing was that Greg reminded me of. We'll see if we can work our way all the way back around to that. But Anyway, Trump has come up with another way to punish Colorado for its intransigence, as though this was a bad thing. And it is the veto of a water projects bill that passed unanimously in Congress, apparently, so bipartisan agreement. We're somewhat reluctant to acknowledge that this is the case because apparently Lauren Boebert sponsored the thing. And then you have to say, oh my God, she gets marks for being what looks like an effective legislator. And that'll happen from time to time. But now she looks ineffective, I guess, and we'll see whether she gets mad with and fights with Trump the same way that Marjorie Taylor Greene has done, except that Marjorie Taylor Greene will be mad and angry and fighting against Trump from somewhere other than Congress starting next week because she's quitting, like the fancy pageant lady in Alaska, oddly enough, with whom she had so much in common. Anyway, here is the deal. I opened up a couple of articles about it, and there's something from, I guess, what's local. Here is their local Channel 9 News. There's also a Colorado Public Radio report about it as well. I don't know which one, if either, is the more interesting, but let me open them both up and we can flip back and forth in between them. KRCC is the public radio outlet out there, and they have the story, Trump vetoes bipartisan bill to provide clean water to rural southeastern Colorado. And being a western state where water issues are paramount, it's going to have real repercussions. And it's another thing that Trump is doing currently to try to punish an entire state because he has a disagreement with the governor there. And I mean, the disagreement he has with the governor in Colorado is an incredibly stupid one. He wants to free a convicted felon who was actually convicted of really honest-to-God tampering with an election, but because she was trying to tamper in his favor, he wants to pardon her, which is insane right from the very foundation. So here he is, effecting collective punishment on all of Colorado as a result, even though the legislation was sponsored by a very MAGA Republican. So let's see. Caitlin Kim and Shanna Lewis and Chuck Murphy, don't leave out Chuck Murphy, get the byline for the public radio write-up. And, well, it goes like this. A plan to help local communities pay their share of the long-sought Arkansas River Valley conduit. Yes, the Arkansas River's headwaters are in Colorado, and it flows all the way out to, you might not have guessed, Arkansas, but that's where the river begins. A plan to help local communities pay their share of the long-sought Arkansas River Valley conduit passed Congress with strong bipartisan support. I was given to understand that it was unanimous, but that might not be the case. You would think they would say so if that were the case, but has still come up one vital signature short of becoming reality, or at least we think so. I mean, he says he vetoed it. Prove it, I say. President Donald Trump on Tuesday vetoed the, quote, Finish the Arkansas Valley Conduit Act. Quote, that's what they call it. That's the name of it. Has that got a good acronym? FAVCA. No, not really. Finish the Arkansas Valley Conduit Act. Okay. This, despite its sponsorship by fellow Republicans and the significant benefit it would provide to southeastern Colorado, where his support runs deep. The conduit, which broke ground in 2023, will provide clean water for farming, factories, and households. The bill would have given local communities 100 years to pay back no-interest federal loans for their share of the project. Sounds pretty juicy, really. Enough is enough, Trump said in a veto message to Congress. What? Okay. My administration is committed to preventing American taxpayers from funding expensive and unreliable policies. Ending the massive cost of taxpayer handouts and restoring fiscal sanity is vital to the economic growth and fiscal health of the nation. I mean, it doesn't sound like he wrote it, but there it is. But I guess if they have a written veto message to go with, that in the ordinary course of things is pretty good indication that a veto was in fact issued by someone purporting to be the president or be acting on behalf of the president. Maybe it was signed by AutoPen. We don't really know. I think what I was thinking of, by the way, when Greg was mentioning something and I thought, oh, there's a proof issue, I was going to ask him, had he seen Josh Marshall posting on Blue Sky, joking around, but it was kind of funny, saying, let's see if I can find his thing. I think it was pretty recent, but basically he was saying, I think I'm going to start a rumor, and I love when people do this, and make it obvious. I mean, it's actually a Chris Rufo tactic. If you think it's terrible or it won't work, you can always point at them and say, well, they're making it work and they're doing it. Why shouldn't we also be doing it? Well, you're not reporting the truth. Well, yes, that's true, but we're just having so much fun that it no longer matters. Anyway, Josh Marshall had posted, I am determined, he says, as God is my witness, to start the Trump fake hand conspiracy theory. Fake hand. You heard me correctly. That is to say, about the discoloration on it's the back of his right hand, isn't it? His hand isn't showing signs of an undisclosed illness. It's a fake painted Halloween costume hand, because his hand was already removed. Does he mean like amputated? That would be pretty funny. It's time, he says. Time to start this rumor. But even better, and left out of the real benefits of the rumor, is that would make all of MAGA insist that all of Trump's signatures are invalid, because it would have had to have been performed with AutoPen because his hand was amputated. It's so dumb, it just might work. And we really should, I don't know, I say we go with it on that one. He didn't veto this bill. The AutoPen did. And as you know, that makes it invalid. And you know what else makes something invalid? Playing the dramatic music 3 times. I think actually if at midnight tonight, if you go into the bathroom and turn out the lights and play the dramatic music 3 times, I guess an orchestra shows up in your bathroom, which, that could be horrible and scary, I guess, in a roundabout sort of way. Anyway, I thought that would be fun. I don't know, maybe make them prove it, though, honestly. Show me the veto message. They're going to be sending it to Congress. This is a great opportunity, actually. It would be a good teaching opportunity to tell people, to demonstrate to them what it means when you do a veto. You write out a veto message. I know we all think that there's a veto. Maybe you don't. If you're of a certain age and you saw, I'm Just a Bill, I guess, in Schoolhouse Rock, it looks like when the president either signs or vetoes a bill that he uses a big stamp. I don't know if anybody really believes that signing a bill involves stamping it okay. But I do think that people do believe that a vetoed bill is maybe stamped veto for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it's not. But and also then people say, well, that he didn't sign the bill. That's true, he didn't sign it, but he signs a veto message anyway. And then you send it back to Congress, and it's really all about actually the thing being on paper. But then they actually, if you're a C-SPAN addict and you watch, they'll carry that veto message back to the House that originated the bill, which I guess if Lauren Boebert sponsored it, she could have been the House sponsor of a Senate bill. I don't really know. But if it began in the House, and because, I don't know where it began, but they'll bring it to the House where it began and announce the veto there. And they bring it onto the floor, and the House, whoever's in the chair, has got to recognize the doorkeeper or someone from the doorkeeper's office, or I guess sometimes they send some people from the clerk's office. I don't know if they even maintain a doorkeeper's separate office anymore. They really did used to have that. Anyway, but that was the person who would come in and announce that the papers were there. The chair will now receive a message from the clerk of the House. And I think maybe the doorkeeper's office might even be under the clerk of the House. So they just do it that way. And then somebody says, Mr. Speaker, a message in writing, a message from the President of the United States in writing. And it's, a number of things will arrive that way. If it's arriving in the House, it's a good bet that it's probably a veto message, because most of the other stuff that the president sends in writing are nominations, and they send those to the Senate. But anyway, I've always thought that, and this is what Greg was talking about right from the beginning with Trump, not just because I don't trust him with paperwork, but because I wanted to slow everything down while Trump was president, because most of what he's doing is garbage, that they ought to be questioning whether or not they really got a genuine message in writing from the President of the United States. Not just on auto pen grounds, but for whatever reason they believe the auto pen renders things invalid. Prove to me that it wasn't done by auto pen when you send me a message in writing from the President of the United States. Prove to me that he actually signed it by hand. And by that I mean bring him here. There's an office in the Capitol building for the president to use for that purpose. And I want to witness the signing. Yes, it's going to waste a tremendous amount of his day. Yes, it's crazy to make him do that all the time. Normally, the President of the United States. He's a very busy person ordinarily. This one is not, so it's not such an imposition. But also, he's got an issue with paperwork. He forged electoral college votes, folks. And even before he did that, I thought he was perhaps just winging it with the formalities of the office. And you should make, if you were trustworthy, like presidents before you, we wouldn't force you to waste the vast majority of your day signing these things, physically present in the Capitol with witnesses on hand to prove that you actually put your hand to it. But now that you're A, a proven forger, and B, have had your hand amputated, we have reason to believe that maybe you're not the one actually implementing this stuff. Maybe it's not been properly prepared or signed at all. Maybe it's not been properly signed by you. Maybe you've never seen the damn thing, or you don't know what it says, or you're not even touching it. Stephen Miller is. I'd like to know. They should make for all the people who say we need to hand count paper ballots for every vote cast in this country, they should be behind this. Of course they're not, because it gets in the way of things they want. But I don't know. I think you ought to be making them prove it at this stage of the game. All right. Well, allegedly he has vetoed this thing, and we were in the middle of reading a different article about it. We should finish up what's going on here, right? So, sounds like a very good program. The bill would have given local communities 100 years to pay back no-interest federal loans. That seems like something easy enough to do. But Trump pretended he had some fiscal objections to this thing. That's not how everyone sees it. That is, that they need to veto this in order to restore fiscal sanity. The Congressional Budget Office estimated the bill would cost the federal government less than $500,000. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation calls the conduit a major infrastructure project that, upon completion, will provide reliable municipal and industrial water to 39 communities in southeast Colorado. The project would also provide badly needed jobs for the area. This isn't a frivolous project. Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District Senior Policy and Issues Manager, I'm out of breath just saying his title, Chris Woodka said. It's Woodka, which sounds like the Russian pronunciation of vodka. So that's a name for you, Chris Vodka. Happy New Year, Chris. It's a project that meets federally mandated standards for water quality to ensure that 50,000 people are drinking clean, not carcinogenic water. That's what you're aiming for in water, sure. And by the way, I guess it should also be pointed out, it's odd that he works for the Water Conservancy District, because vodka, I guess, as I understand it in the Russian language, is a diminutive for water, even though, it's not water. It's vodka. It looks like water, but I guess they think that's cute. We'll give it a diminutive name because it will knock you on your ass if you drink it, even though you think it's water. you won't mistake it for water a second time. Anyway, interesting name. Woodka said the water district is working with the congressional delegation to figure out next steps and won't give up on the project. Now, you know the next steps from Schoolhouse Rock, right? The Congress can attempt to override this veto, but it will take 2/3 of both houses to do it. But if it was broadly popular and bipartisan, there's a pretty good reason to expect that they would be able to do it, especially with John Thune just sort of giving the non-committal answer, but not saying, I haven't heard about it or I haven't seen it. He's just puzzled as to why Trump would do it. Now, the problem with that is you only need to find 1/3 of one of the houses to remain loyal enough to Trump to say, we'll damage southeastern Colorado and its Republican voters on behalf of Trump's fit of pique, trying to get a convicted felon vote fraudster out of jail. But I'm not sure how that will go down. Anyway, they say they won't give up. The bill passed via voice vote. Now we understand why it was that it was reported to have been unanimous. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's unanimous. But it did pass by unanimous consent in the Senate. So I guess I can forgive the confusion. Or maybe the confusion was my own. I don't remember exactly what I read on Blue Sky about it. Okay, but that answers it. Passed via voice vote in the House, which means not necessarily that it was unanimous, but that in the opinion of the chair, there were more yes votes than no votes, and nobody objected to that and insisted on a recorded vote. So, there has some aspect of unanimity to it, if not unanimous in the House, pretty damn close. But in the Senate, yes, that huge congressional support for the project would seem to make the veto ripe for an override. But that would require testing the will of Republican leaders in both chambers to allow for a vote and to take on their party's leader. Such a challenge to Trump is no sure thing. All right. Well, the congestion is finally getting to me. If you'll pardon me for just a moment, I need to take a short break. I have nothing to play for you, so just enjoy the silence of the last few minutes of 2025. Well, hopefully that takes care of things, at least for a little bit. But it was getting to be a little ridiculous. I was starting to sound like, I don't know, buckwheat or something. Blah, 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 blah. I can't go on this way. All right. Not certain that it won't happen again. But, all right. So where were we? Legislation authorizing and funding completion of the project is perhaps the most impactful bill sponsored by Republican Representative Lauren Boebert during her entire time in Congress. They didn't say entire. That was my emphasis, but they were being kind. Her time in Congress. And while she didn't raise the specter of a veto override in a statement on Wednesday night, she nonetheless was not shy about expressing her displeasure with the president. President Trump decided to veto a completely non-controversial bipartisan bill that passed both the House and Senate unanimously. She is wrong, Boebert said. Well, I guess I don't know that it wasn't unanimous. I suppose in the voice vote, nobody could have said no. So you never know. Anyway, so we'll let her get away with it this time. Plus, it makes Trump look that much worse. If this administration wants to make its legacy blocking projects that deliver water to rural Americans, that's on them. Well, yes, but you could help make that their legacy and defeat them. But we'll see whether you're going to join in on that one. Boebert also questioned the president's motives for the veto, suggesting it might be retribution because she helped ensure a vote on releasing the Epstein files. That's an actual legitimate possibility, I suppose, at this point, although Trump, well, I guess in his veto message, he didn't even say it was about Tina Peters. So, and it's such a stupid and crazy wildcat move that it could mean anything, and it could mean 10 things at any given time. I sincerely hope this veto has nothing to do with political retaliation for calling out corruption and demanding accountability. Americans deserve leadership that puts people over politics. Oh, well. GOP Representative Jeff Hurd was also a co-sponsor of the House version of the bill, while Senators Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper introduced it in the Senate. Democrats in Colorado's delegation were also quick to label the veto an act of reprisal, with Bennett posting on X, "This isn't governing, it's a revenge tour." Hickenlooper added on X, and you just shouldn't be there, folks, "Congress should swiftly overturn this veto." The project has been on the drawing board since the 1960s. It was designed to eventually stop groundwater withdrawals in the area, which can produce water tainted with radioactivity. Yeah, you don't want that, I don't think. The 130-mile conduit would bring water from Pueblo Reservoir to Bent, Kiowa, Crowley, Otero, Prowers, and Pueblo counties. The original legislation required the state and community to fund 100% of the cost, but President Barack Obama, thanks Obama, and Congress opened the door to federal funding in 2009. The vetoed legislation did not authorize new construction spending or expand the federal government's original commitment, Hurd said in his statement about the veto. More than $200 million has already been invested, alongside significant state and local contributions. Further delay risks stranding taxpayer dollars and leaving communities without a viable path to meeting drinking water standards. Groundbreaking on part of the project, that is, actually took place in 2023, but it was always known that federal legislation would likely be needed to complete the entire conduit, and they did pass it, maybe unanimously, but Trump's not going to let you have it. Trump take water. That's basically what it comes down to. Is the 9 News version of this story from one of the local Colorado TV stations any different? Do they lay the blame? No, but they do make mention of the Tina Peters angle, at least. Monday's veto comes after Trump promised retaliation against Colorado for keeping his ally, Tina Peters, in prison. Peters was convicted on state charges, of course, for a scheme to tamper with voting systems in a search for election rigging in the 2020 presidential race. Trump is killing the bill to finish the Arkansas Valley Conduit, a decades-long project to bring safe drinking water to 39 communities in the eastern plains between Pueblo and Lamar. The groundwater there is high in salt, and wells sometimes unleash radioactivity into the water supply. And you know what that means. It's going to turn either Tina Peters or I guess maybe possibly Jared Polis into Godzilla. And I guess depending on which way that problem, I guess it could turn both of them, and then they could battle it out, and then we'll see who rules Colorado. Well, anyway, seems pretty crazy. They also make mention of word from Boebert that she thinks it might really all be about the Epstein files, which honestly, I don't know if I could make a call as to if it's only one or the other, which one it would be, but I could easily be a little bit of both. But thanks to who reported this for 9 News, Marilyn Moore and Kyle Clark. Thank you for making mention of the Tina Peters situation in your reporting on the subject. I think it's an important part of it. All right. Oh, you know what? I meant to also credit Derek Guy on Blue Sky. That's the dye workwear guy. And am I pronouncing it? It doesn't stand for anything else, does it? Or is it like dye workwear? I hate you as a concept. Is that what that's supposed to be? I'm not really 100% sure. But anyway, everyone knows he's pretty funny. Mentioning for the portion of the show when we were talking about the renaming of the Kennedy Center, he was giving us a thought exercise to work with, right? Republicans are screaming their heads off, how dare you, and we're going to sue, and how ridiculous is it that you inject politics and just shut up and play kind of a thing. But constructing a scenario on the other side of things, let's say Democrats find some way in a future Democratic authoritarian regime, they rename Mar-a-Lago, or it doesn't even require Democrats to do it, but he's basically positing this. Okay, so renaming Mar-a-Lago, this is what I mean. He was saying, in my own fantasy, this is how it would go. I am renaming Mar-a-Lago. We'll rename it Black Lives Matter, Trans Rights are Human Rights, and No Human is Illegal. A Lago, I guess you could add that on there. And then we'll all get mad when Kid Rock declines to perform there. You don't think he would do exactly that, and you don't think that these people would support his decision to do so? Of course they would. So that's the issue, I guess, as I see it. And it's a pretty dumb issue. But okay, I liked his take on it. And I have to tell you that because the tab is open and it would be a huge waste of effort at finding that fun post on Blue Sky and not share it with you. All right, we got our other break coming up here. We can retire for a 2-minute powwow with the tissue box at this point. Okay, well, at any rate, got a couple more stories to try to cram in here before the end of the year. It's very important that you hear these things in 2025, apparently. And let's see, a number of other windows that are open here on other tweets. Is that... Oh, yes, we'll squeeze this one in, although I'd like to read a little bit about it. But you remember the new twist, I guess, when I told you about the weird phone vote that the board of the Kennedy Center allegedly held in changing the name, and that members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress, said they were silenced on that call? There's a new twist in that one. I'll tell you after this.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. One more segment in 2025. And, yeah, you know, it might be wise to take New Year's Day away from the microphone and rest the voice just a little bit more. And maybe a good idea to take Friday as well. But I don't want to leave you hanging too long. But we'll see how it goes and how I'm feeling during the rest of today in the big run-up to ruining my health in the name of marking the turnover of the 12th month back to the 1st in the calendar. It's not a really good reason for this celebration, but everyone seems to love it. All right. You remember that Joyce Beatty, who is a member of the House, Democratic member of the House from Ohio, and who occupies one of the seats on the Kennedy board of the Board of Governors, Board of Trustees, I forget what they call them, but there's a certain number of seats reserved for ex officio members who serve as by virtue of their being members of Congress, or appointed by the House and Senate leadership, or recommended to the president, I guess, as a group. And the president's normally too busy to take a look at who you're nominating, and unless it's like, well, you didn't put Adolf Hitler on the list, right? So I'll be cool with approving or naming whoever you suggest. I don't remember how the process actually works, but very likely with a lot of things, it's just you guys take care of which members of the House and Senate are going to be named. Presumably, it's an equal number of senators and House members, which is weird because there's 4 times as many House members, but they do it that way. And evenly divided between the parties, which is also weird because there are some independents in there as well. But okay, never mind all of that. Basically, it doesn't bother anybody normally, and the president just says, whatever, whoever you nominate is fine. This president might not agree to do that anymore, but that's not the twist. The Washington Post knows the twist, and they've changed their font for the headlines, by the way, and no one has cried about that at all. Kennedy Center changed board rules months before the vote to add Trump's name. I don't think anybody noticed that one. The new rules say only trustees appointed by the president can vote, which I guess shoots gigantic holes in my theory of how the rest of the seats are filled, or it might be a slip of the tongue. It could be, it was my impression that probably the president nominated all of them, but that the nominations originate with the president only for a certain section of a certain number of the trustees, and that the others who are in fact nominated by the president, I better double check this now, maybe it's not the case. We'll see what the story says, and then we'll see what we find out. We have to do this. Now we can't pay any attention to other news, which is important, but we dig into these things in these shows. But it may be the case that the president technically appoints all of them, but takes direction from others in naming certain members to certain seats. All right, here's the story as it's reported. The new rules say only trustees appointed by the president can vote. Why would you do that? So that you can get away with crap like this. Barring other members, including Democrats who hold seats, from decisions. The center says the change reflects, quote, long-standing precedent. I guess we'd like to find out what that precedent is. Janae Kingsbury and Kelsey Abels are the reporters here. The Kennedy Center, well put, adopted bylaws earlier this year that limited voting to presidentially appointed trustees, a move that preceded a unanimous decision this month, it was reported, by board members installed by President Donald Trump to add his name to the center. The current bylaws, obtained by the Washington Post, were revised in May to specify that board members designated by Congress, known as ex officio members, could not vote or count toward a quorum. Legal experts say the move may conflict with the institution's charter. Oh no, you think? Trump took over the Kennedy Center in February, purging its board of members he had not appointed. The months that followed saw struggling ticket sales and programming changes that began to align the arts complex with the Trump administration's broader cultural aims, culminating with the annual Kennedy Center Honors hosted by the president. Days later, on December 18th, the board voted to add the president's name to the institution, and within 24 hours, it was on the website and the building itself. Quote, the Donald J. Trump and they didn't get rid of the second D, John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts. Several artists have announced cancellations at the center as the unprecedented move drew public scrutiny and backlash. Democratic lawmakers and legal experts said it was illegal for the board to alter the name of the living memorial to Kennedy that Congress established. Democrats also claimed that one ex officio member, Representative Joyce Beatty of Ohio, was muted when she attempted to speak out during the December 18th vote. And let's see, at this point they reproduce a short screen cap from the bylaws with some highlighting on here. This is Article 5 of the bylaws of the board, membership of the board. Section 1, membership. The board shall be composed of ex officio non-voting members and general trustee voting members. That's the new version. The board then would consist of A, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Why? Not really sure what role the performing arts has in Health and Human Services, as opposed to say, I don't know, Department of the Interior. No real reason. I don't know who that would fall under, but the original charter said it would be this way. Also, B, the Librarian of Congress, C, the Secretary of State, and D, the Chairperson of the Commission of Fine Arts. The highlighted text in the following excerpts, it says, shows language added to the bylaws in May, and what's the following excerpts? It's actually a preceding excerpt, but there you go. The addition being that ex officio non-voting members, or ex officio members would be non-voters, and general trustees would be the only voting members. Roma Daravi, the center's vice president of public relations, told the Post that ex officio members have never voted. The bylaws were revised to reflect this long-standing precedent, and everyone received the technical changes both before the meeting and after revisions. Daravi, maybe true, wrote in an email to the Post, some members, including ex officio, attended in person, others by phone, and no concerns were voiced, no one objected, and the bylaws passed unanimously. You know, if they did, that's an interesting story. I mean, you're supposed to be there to speak up and say something. But I don't know anything about whether or not historically ex officio members have or haven't voted. The Kennedy Center lists 34 presidentially appointed board members, including Trump himself as chair, and 23 ex officio seats. The center's president, Richard Grinnell, is also an officer of the board. The federal law that established the Kennedy Center designates specific government and federal positions, including Librarian of Congress, the Mayor of Washington, D.C., the Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, and the majority and minority leaders of the Senate to serve as ex officio members. Although that is interesting because up top it says that the Librarian of Congress will be one of the general trustee voting members. And I guess the original federal law leaves the Librarian of Congress as an ex officio member. So that's another change, but they didn't highlight that one. The law identifies them as part of the Board of Trustees, which it directs to maintain and administer the facility as a living memorial, but it does not distinguish between voting and non-voting members, which has been a point of ambiguity in the days following the vote to rename the Kennedy Center. The center's original bylaws didn't distinguish voting powers either, but its most recent tax filings list 59, quote, voting members of its governing body, a total that includes both general and ex officio members. So that's interesting. In its tax filings, one report that it makes to the federal government, it says actually ex officio members are voting members. So a little bit of a problem. Another screen cap here from the bylaws on Section 5, defining a quorum. As provided in Section 6A of the Act, the board may function notwithstanding vacancies. 12 voting members of the board shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business, and the act of a majority of the board members present at any meeting at which there is a quorum shall be the act of the board. If a quorum shall not be present at any meeting of the board, the members present thereat may adjourn the meeting from time to time without notice other than an announcement at the meeting until a quorum shall be present. Important to know. Not really the last part, but okay. A former Kennedy Center staffer with knowledge of board proceedings who spoke on condition of anonymity because he's afraid somebody's going to kill him for telling people what the actual rules of the Kennedy Center board are, says to the Post that ex officio members were always included in debate and discussion in their tenure, but the person did not recall a time when those members' votes were counted. That is interesting. That may actually be the case. That just also means that the tax filings are incorrect. I don't know what kind of problems that creates. Theoretically, they could vote. But our practice was not to have them vote or count toward a quorum, the person said, noting that they were not aware of the new leadership's practices at the center. For this report, the Post reached out to all ex officio members with questions about their voting authority and any known changes to it. Some told the Post, or other outlets, that they understood their current role to be non-voting, though none addressed whether they were aware of any prior changes to that status. This is one of those stories that really illustrates, by the way, the importance of understanding the procedure and the parameters of the procedure. If you ask an ex officio member or a former ex officio member, are ex officio members voting members of the board? They might say no, because the practice had always been, apparently, that they not vote. But it is apparent here that the right to cast a vote could at some point could have credibly been asserted by any of the ex officio members. It's not clear that they're not allowed to vote. They simply opted not to. like in the same way that the Speaker of the House usually doesn't vote on routine bills on the floor of the House, but can vote, not to break a tie or anything else. It's a vote that they can cast. They just often opt not to by tradition. But it creates confusion. We asked 10 ex officio members from past boards whether they remember ever voting. They said no, and most of them said I don't think we were allowed to vote. If we had been, we would have voted on some things, right? Well, that's not necessarily the answer. Anyway, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, you know who he is, told a reporter on December 18th, "I don't have a vote. I don't know enough about it." Sheldon Whitehouse, senator from Rhode Island, told the Post that he became an ex officio member this year after he became the lead Democrat on the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, another ex officio seat designated by Congress, but was not invited to board meetings until his committee began investigating the Kennedy Center last month. Whitehouse said the statute makes no distinction between ex officio and presidentially appointed trustees when it comes to members' rights and responsibilities on the board, including voting, and he accused the Trump-appointed board of attempting to illegally change the bylaws to silence dissent. It will be interesting when and if a court sorts through this, and when and if they do, whether or not they decide to be outcome determinative and just say, well, we just need Trump to win because it makes it to the Supreme Court, let's say, where they want to do that, or whether courts will say, I don't know, it seems pretty plain that there's no distinction between them and there's nothing prohibiting their voting. And it does strain credulity a little bit, I think. Do we say credulity or credibility? What gets strained in this situation? My head cold prevents me from thinking this through clearly. But what is the problem here is, what are the odds that it was really Congress's intent to create this living memorial, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, allow the president the latitude to fire sitting members of the board and replace them with his own chosen designees, and that those designees would be the only ones allowed to vote on anything? That doesn't sound like the normal process that Congress would choose for this or any other institution that was governmental or quasi-governmental. The idea that one person could name all the voting members of the board and thereby control the board, plus, of course, make himself president of the board. Also very difficult to believe is the idea that Congress would assign itself ex officio seats on the board, but that those seats would be completely powerless and without any voice or vote. Does that sound like something Congress would write for itself? Or would you think their inclination might run to giving themselves a say in how this thing was governed? I think in all likelihood they would give themselves a say, and that they would attempt to design the governance of this institution such that it wouldn't fall prey to the influence of one person and one person only. All right. Whether or not the path to board membership as an ex officio member has to run through the president's office or not, I don't think that they would necessarily avoid that, because they wouldn't have predicted that a president would do something like this and block ex officio members, say, for political reasons or whatever, that the president, it would be more or less agreed that he would just say yes to whatever list the Congress handed him. Anyway, back to the rest of the article here. A spokesperson for the Smithsonian Institution said that Secretary Lonnie G. Bunch III does not vote or attend the meetings. It was unclear whether he had since assuming his role in 2019, but it is not uncommon for high officials serving on influential Washington boards to attend by proxy or not at all. Copies of the Kennedy Center's May and September board meeting minutes obtained by the Post showed that many ex officio members were absent or sent a staffer in their place. Beatty, who sued the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees on December 22nd to stop it from adding Trump's name to the institution, declined to comment for this story, but her lawsuit argues the center's statute makes her a full voting member. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, who is listed as an ex officio member on the Kennedy Center's website, said he is no longer part of the board. I was on the Kennedy Center board in the last Congress, he told the Post, so their website is not caught up because I was told when Democrats lost control of the Senate and the Republicans became the majority that I fell off. The charter calls for 3 additional Senate members appointed by the President of the Senate and 3 House members appointed by the Speaker to serve in ex officio seats. All right, pardon me again. Another short break. Here also, I'd have to see the statute, and I'm inclined to look, but maybe not on the air necessarily, because it could easily be the case that when they say appointment by the President of the Senate and appointment by the Speaker of the House, that it means direct appointment to it, which is entirely possible, right? Give yourself a check and balance on the president by naming people directly by act of the legislature, as opposed to nominating those people in the name of the Speaker and the President of the Senate, and then handing it over to the President of the United States to make it official by transferring those names onto a different piece of paper and handing it back to the House and Senate, or something like that. But if it's the case that they appoint them directly, it is in all likelihood that they do so in order for there to be an influential congressional presence as something of a check and balance. I don't know if anybody necessarily, you could argue they didn't really want there to be checks and balances at the Kennedy Center. But in a situation like this one, I guess you'll say, well, they may not have anticipated the reason why there would need to be a check and balance on the board of the Kennedy Center. But we see that there is one now, so it wouldn't be terribly surprising. But I'm giving you what will probably be the dissent of the 3 liberal justices in the end. I can still predict that, at any rate. All right, many in high-ranking roles, including the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer of New York did not respond to requests for comment. The offices of D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser and the acting librarian, I didn't realize that we only had an acting librarian of Congress, but maybe I'm sure we had heard that news earlier. But the acting librarian of Congress, Robert Newland, declined to comment. Other changes from the May revision state that the general trustees serve at the pleasure of the president. Previously, that language appeared in the bylaws and the federal statute only in reference to the Advisory Committee on the Arts, which is a separate body that makes recommendations to the board. So now some new language in this screen cap. Section 2, General Trustees. The General Trustees shall be appointed by the President of the United States. Each such trustee shall hold office as a member of the board for a term of 6 years, except that A, any member appointed to fill a vacancy occurring prior to the expiration of the term for which the predecessor of the member was appointed shall be appointed for the remainder of the term, and B, a member shall continue to serve until the successor of the member has been appointed. And now C, they've added, a member shall serve at the pleasure of the president. They also added language to the ability of officers to make certain appointments, including stating that the chair may appoint the center's president to act as chief executive. That a rather lengthier excerpt here, but in Article 6, Management and Officers, 1, Management. The management of the board and the control of its property and affairs shall be vested in the board. And then they added, the chair may appoint a president to function as the chief executive officer of the John F. Kennedy Center, of the Performing Arts, to perform such duties and to be compensated commensurate to the position. I don't know whether it would be a serious objection to say, well, it does say that the person can be designated as president of the board and chief executive of the Kennedy Center, but not the Trump Kennedy Center. I don't know if that would go anywhere. Section 2 was unchanged about the chair and the secretary. Unchanged in Section A, subsection A. But subsection B, other officers, has some additional language. And you know what? I don't think it helps us decipher everything here. But what else? The president of the board, subject to the general authority of the chair and subject to the direction of the board, the president shall serve as the chief executive office. It says office, but they probably meant officer. Of the John F. Kennedy Center. Oh, there's typos all over this thing, which is interesting too. So maybe it suggests that it was hastily prepared, perhaps so hastily prepared that it wasn't actually handed around in May, but was prepared after the fact. I now suspect that this may have been a document prepared after the fact to justify what they were doing, and they should look into it because of how many typos there are. It's not conclusive, but it's interesting. It does say here that the president of the board, I guess, shall serve as the chief executive office of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and shall have managerial authority and other duties commensurate to the office. The vote by the Kennedy Center's board to add Trump's name to the institution marked the most overt effort to date by the president and his allies to remold the storied Performing Arts Center in his image. In the days since the name was added to the building, several lawmakers have vowed to fight the change. During a rally outside the Kennedy Center on December 20th, Van Hollen said he and his colleagues would work to reverse the move when Congress returns to session in January. The day we get back, we can put an amendment on the Interior Appropriations Bill to reverse this outrage, he told the crowd. Whether or not that's something they can get past, I have my doubts. There's more to it, but at this point, we'll jump out of the story only to give you this in closing, in case we don't come back or can't make it back, and things are getting worse. There's a story erupting in right-wing world, which is now having real-world implications, which you should know about because you might encounter it and say, what the effing F is this? I don't think we've made mention of it up to this point, but out in Minnesota, and this was something that came to mind when I was reading about the supposed veto of the Colorado water bill. In Minnesota, at some point, I don't know who brought this up, but this seems like people have been pointing at the Libs of TikTok account on X as a possible source for this higher rate check. I don't know exactly where the story began, but at some point, and it might not even be recent, I guess as a compliment, I guess you could say, to the attacks on the Somali American community in Minnesota, because that's where Ilhan Omar is based, and yeah, there's a Somali American community there. At some point, some of the right-wing influencers found out that there had been a case brought, and by the way, concluded, in which a Somali American owned or managed daycare center was accused of somehow defrauding the federal government or maybe the state government in seeking subsidies for subsidized childcare, essentially, and that they weren't on the up and up here. But the thing is, the case was brought, prosecuted, concluded, and ended in a conviction under the Biden administration. It wasn't like they were standing by for this. But the Republican charge is, oh no, they actually are doing this everywhere. And that every daycare center is now suspect, not just ones run or managed or even used by Somali Americans, but basically everything. And it's all a big fraud, and it's because of them, and we got to expel them all from the United States of America. I mean, the most absurd conflations possible. And it has now seeped into real world, whereby the president has ordered his members of his cabinet to, they purport to have frozen all federal subsidies for childcare to Minnesota, pending finding out what the hell is going on out there. So most people, as you know, will react very, gently to the idea that, oh, your child care is threatened. The affordability of your child care has now been threatened. Everybody in the state of Minnesota who's got a kid in daycare that receives any sort of state or federal subsidy, apparently, now has to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to afford it, whether their child care center is going to be able to stay open. But to make it even dumber and creepier, the weirdo right-wing community in the area has insisted that the scam as they see it, which again has been prosecuted and people have been sent to prison. And by the way, the whole thing was orchestrated by a very white American woman, as it turns out, but that's of no consequence to them. That they were all basically opening fake daycare centers, pretending they had X number of students and accepting subsidies based on those numbers. And that if you wanted to be a part of busting this ring of fraud, what you should do is, and you should not do this, go to your local daycare center with a video camera and demand to be let into the place so that you could be shown that there really were children there and prove to me that you're actually a legitimate daycare center. In other words, strangers, and in most cases, let's be honest, white men, were going to show up at these daycare centers, whether they were run by Somali Americans or not, and bang on the door with their cameras out and their phones out and demand to be let into these locked facilities so that I can, videotape strangers' children for totally non-nefarious purposes. Don't you know I'm trying to stop fraud? And if they don't let you in, that was merely evidence that there really was fraud there, and maybe even worse. And so they were encouraging people to go to their local centers and disrupt their days and send them into lockdown. I just want to point out, though, that this is probably being executed in most cases by people who used to say that every school and daycare office should be stocked with AR-15s so that you could mow down weirdos who were trying to smash their way in for nefarious purposes. But of course, they weren't doing it for nefarious purposes, so you're not allowed to stand your ground against them.
EdwardsRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Anyway, I just thought you ought to know what the hell was going on out there. And yes, it's ridiculous, and yes, it's insane, and yes, it's dangerous, but they're doing it anyway. All right, well, Happy New Year to you, as they're endangering the lives of children all over Minnesota, and it's not like there's any political violence in the Minnesota area lately. Enjoy your new year. I'll see if I can get back on the air next year.